The East China School District to order. We will start off with a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Let the fun begin.
First item on our agenda is recognition of persons wishing to address the board. Seeing none, we'll move on. Information discussion items, St. Clair County Economic Development, Mr. Dan Casey and Dr. Skolka.
We invited Mr. Casey here tonight to kind of give the board, and because we're on Channel 6, the community an update on what's happening in St. Clair County with economic development and growth. A lot of things that I certainly was unaware of, and I hope it's informative for everyone. So, Mr. Casey, thank you so much for coming, and go ahead.
Thank you. I'm just going to pass out a couple of things. Well, first, thank you for having me. My name is Dan Casey, and I'm the CEO of the Economic Development Alliance in St. Clair County. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with our organization, so I thought I'd just take a moment to explain who we are and what we do. The Economic Development Alliance is a public-private organization that provides business expansion, retention, and attraction services for all of the communities of St. Clair County. We're probably one of the oldest and possibly the oldest economic development group in Michigan. We were formed in the early 50s, initially as the Port Huron Industrial Development Council, and way back when it was our job to develop the largest industrial park that we have in the county, which is in Port Huron. Over the years, our mission has expanded. So today, for example, we do community development work where we assist communities with downtown projects, commercial and retail, pretty much anything that relates to development, including large housing development. In addition, we have a host of services that we offer for startup companies and entrepreneurs so that we can help to generate or build the next generation of businesses for our region. So we do all of that work with a pretty good staff of experts that work all over the county. I wanted to just give you a little bit of some highlights from the 2014 year, talk to you a little bit about the economy and where we are today, and then I can take any questions that you might have afterwards if that's acceptable. Great, good. So in front of you, you've got two documents that I'm going to be referring to. The first is the 2014 annual report for our organization, and the second is an economic scorecard that was actually just launched today publicly, which relates to some economic indicators, some education indicators, that is both based on our own performance here in the county, but as well as comparing it to the state performance. First, I'll start with our 2014 annual report. The Economic Development Alliance works on a wide variety of projects throughout the year. We track probably 50 to 60 different metrics throughout the year. Some of those metrics relate to overall economic performance in the county for projects that we're not even involved with, but we do it for the benefit of the county and for the communities that we serve. And so what you see in this report are the results of the work that the EDA did that we were directly involved with, but I want to supplement that a little bit with some additional information about other projects. So we are currently in a pretty significant multi-year upswing in St. Clair County in terms of its economy. Some people don't necessarily know that. Some people still think we're in the recession, but I can tell you that we've long since left the recession, and we're actually on the upswing in terms of both investment, job creation. Not every metric is on the upswing, but we're doing pretty well compared to our past history. You can see in the 2014 annual report some numbers related to job creation in 2014, investment that occurred, highlights of some of the projects that occurred around the county, and so on. And I can tell you it was a pretty healthy year. The year before was even better, and the year before that was about equivalent to 2014. So since 2012, we've really been doing pretty well in the county in terms of new investment and job growth. Job growth for us really peaked in terms of the total number of jobs that were being created about 2 years ago. We had last year, I think, close to 1,200 jobs that were created in the county. This year it was more like about 1,000 jobs. I think it was 1,120 if you include the small businesses. So job growth has been on the upswing for us, and as a result, our unemployment rate in the county has dropped significantly over those 3 years. 4 years ago, when I first started with the EDA, I came into my position and we had a countywide unemployment rate that was approaching 16%. That's pretty awful. Today, based on the month of December rate that was reported by the state of Michigan, it was 7.2%. So that'll give you an indication of, in 4 years, how much the unemployment rate has declined, and how, and that's a direct result of jobs being created in the local economy. So today we're at about 7.2%. It's been steadily dropping for 2014. You'll see in the scorecard there's a reference to the unemployment rate, and it says that it's 9%. That's the annual average for 2014. So that's when they measure all of the months together. And that's always the case, but at the last 2 months of the year, it was 7.4 and 7.2%. We are going to see a little bit of a bump up in the unemployment rate for probably the next 3 months in our county, but that's okay, because in this case, it's a result of a project that's occurring in Windsor, where they're going to be forced to do a changeover to prepare for the minivan that's produced there. And some of our companies have told us they're going to have to lay people off for a temporary period of time. So you will see the unemployment rate go up a little bit, but then I expect it'll go back down again. We had some pretty significant projects occur within the last year. More importantly, I think, than say manufacturing and job creation, more importantly, we began to see a lot of commercial and retail investment taking place all around the county. What you're going to see next year at this time, if I were to come back to you, is a significant amount of investment that has occurred in the county in commercial. We're talking in the range of $300 million or more of new investment that will be occurring next year. Or most of it will be built this year, but we'll be reporting it next year. That's pretty substantial for us, because you can go back over 10 or 15 years and look at the numbers and see that we didn't have that level really of new investment since probably the early 90s in our region. And so for the first time in a long time, we're beginning to see some significant investment all across the economy. It's not just manufacturing, automotive, it's healthcare, it's hospitals that are investing in their facilities, it's new hotels, it's commercial development, it's retail development. Pretty much every downtown in the county is seeing some kind of resurgence, rebirth, or rehabilitation of buildings in their communities. And so I think it's a really positive time. I guess it's tempered by one area of caution, though, which is a lot of the job growth that's happened over the last 3 years has been in automotive, and it's been manufacturing. And our market, our availability of workforce has really been drained as a result. And today, most of those manufacturers are reporting that there's a talent gap or a lack of availability of skilled workers to fill those job openings. This has really been, I think, highlighted over the last year, where you've seen some pretty crazy things. companies putting billboards up on the expressway to try to recruit engineers or, you know, the highly skilled talent. Brit Manufacturing has a billboard up on I-94 right now, and it's been up for 2 or 3 months. So that's just an indicator that although there's a lot of job openings, there's not a lot of people left that have the skills to fill them. As a result of that, we're seeing a lot of migration into the county, from Macomb County in particular, of people to fill those jobs. And those people go home at night, and they're spending the money that they're earning in our county in their communities. So for us, that's an opportunity. We need some new homes built in the county. The housing market is really tight right now. There's not many homes available, and when those that are available are being snapped up very quickly. We're starting to see home prices go up. It's really been probably the last year where you've seen home prices beginning to go up over the asking price. And as a result of that, although there's an opportunity for these people to move into our community so that they're closer to work, there's a lack of homes for them to do that. So one of the areas that my organization is going to be focusing on going forward is, and Mr. Fletcher actually talked about it earlier today in a meeting, and I was really happy to hear that he supported that idea, which is that we need to begin meeting with home builders, especially, you know, the mid-size home builders that are in the region but not necessarily located in our county, and try to drive some interest in properties in our county for them to begin preparing for the next wave of subdivisions that might be built here. When you look at the trends of where is that going to happen, there is some debate over that. In my mind, it's clear that the new residential development that's likely to take place in our county is going to come in the southern part of the county, probably along 26 Mile Road. Right now, I don't know if anyone's really familiar with all of the residential development between 24 and 25 Mile Road in Chesterfield Township. Mm-hmm. That's going to continue creeping north, and it's not going to just stop as soon as it gets to the St. Clair border. I expect it'll continue. So we have a number of problems that we'll have to overcome in order to see that residential begin to creep into our communities, and one of those is lack of water and sewer along 26 Mile Road. There's some areas where there's water, there's a couple of roads where there's some sewer, but it's not right at 26 Mile Road. So the extension of that infrastructure, and specifically if we can get it into Casco Township, that's one area where there's an opportunity. But anywhere along 26 Mile Road, we need that infrastructure in place for that development to occur. And I really think we're not in an environment where we can ask the builders to fund it. So public sector is going to have to come in to some extent and fund it. And that's difficult with the economy that we've just come out of. A lot of communities have not been able to overcome the assessment declines. Their budgets are down. Their ability to bond to do some of these infrastructure improvements is difficult, not impossible, but difficult. So that's a challenge we will have to overcome, but we absolutely have to do it. So in the meantime, what you will see is the areas in the county that in the past were platted for subdivisions or condominiums, those are going to be built first. Wherever they're located, if you have one in your communities somewhere, that's likely going to be built first because the infrastructure's there. They've already in the past had planned for it. And so I would be looking at those areas for potential growth because that will happen first. So overall, I think I touched on employment is very good. It continues to look pretty good going forward. But the lack of talent is going to constrain investment at some point in the near future. We compete globally for investment. We're competing very heavily in North America for all kinds of projects. The amount of projects that are coming to us has increased significantly over the last 3 years. A lot of the leads now come through the state of Michigan, and they come directly to my organization, and it's our job to respond on behalf of all of the communities in our county and to submit proposals for those projects. So I can tell you, we see every one of them. We're sitting on two right now, 300-acre requirement and a 200-acre requirement. We can't accommodate either one in our county right now because we don't have the infrastructure and we don't have 300 acres or 200 acres ready to go. But nonetheless, we see these projects coming to us. They're typically they're U.S.-based site searches. Occasionally, we'll compete against a project in Mexico or in Canada as well. Food processing, kind of those kind of projects. So the opportunities are there, but the lack of workforce really will hurt us and our ability to continue to be successful at attracting investment. So we're going to have to do some things with workforce. Fortunately, there are some things that are some projects and pilot programs that are moving forward. One of them that you'll see this year is the RISA is hosting a summer pilot training program. They've worked with the EDA, my organization, on that program. And the intent of it is, well, first let me back up. We did a survey this year of manufacturers, and we said, in 2015, can you tell us how many jobs you anticipate having available in these following areas? And we mirrored all of RISA's manufacturing curriculum, all their classes. Their TIG welding, their MIG welding, the CNC machining, mechatronics, and so on. We put all those in the survey and we said, how many jobs in each of these categories are you going to create? From that, we found out that the biggest demand was going to be for CNC machinists within the next year. So that's what RISA is going to be teaching during this summer program. They're going to be taking high school graduates from across the county, kids that are not planning to go to college, and kids that did not go to their tech program. So these are kids that don't have a career plan, that maybe are looking to work at McDonald's or don't have any kind of idea what they're going to do next. That's who they're going to focus on with this program. So the idea is we're going to put them in this intense training program over about a 10-week period. Then matching them up with manufacturers. They're going to do internships with the companies, and they'll have the opportunity to be hired full-time. That's the kind of program that we need to get more of our talent prepared for these job opportunities. And it's not just manufacturing. We're doing the same thing with coding, computer software design, healthcare. We've got programs for healthcare that we're developing at RISA as well. The same type of pilot program that's going to happen this summer for manufacturing, next summer it could be for accounting. So the key is understanding what type of jobs are going to be out there, and then providing the training that will be needed so that we can get those people eligible to win those jobs. The basis of all of this, I think for us in the county, is we're worried about when all of the retirees leave the workforce. Who's going to replace them? What skills are they going to have? And because of that, we're developing a career-based education system that's being implemented in all of the districts in the county. This project started 2 years ago. Over the last year and a half, we've been implementing components of it. And this year, for example, for the first time ever, we have advisors that are working in 5 of the 7 high schools whose job it is to connect directly with kids and with employers in the county, to connect them to internships, mentorships, all those types of programs. That's just one example. Plant tours, facility tours, professional days. These are all components of this program that need to be put in place so that we can begin to prepare these kids for the actual job openings that we're going to have across all of the industries within our county. So that's important work that my organization is involved with. We're supporting SC4, Baker College, RISA, and others to bring this kind of curriculum to the whole county. I guess I want to wrap up by talking a little bit about where I think we're going to be headed over the next couple of years. And first, I would say that our manufacturing sector is going to slow down. It's going to slow down and probably stagnate in terms of job creation and investment. All of our automotive suppliers in our county have already invested over the last 3 years. Most of them are out of building space. So the investment that we will see this year, next year, probably the next couple of years, will likely be in building expansions or new construction. And that's good news for your school district because you'll get some tax revenue from that. The St. Clair Industrial Park is a premier piece of property that we put on the table for virtually every project that we compete for around the country. That's one of the pieces that is automatically on the table for every greenfield project. We've got several prospects we're working with right now. We're hopeful that we will finally get a development on that property. It's been 12 years, that it will finally happen within the next 12 months. That will be the start of what I think will be a trend of industrial development along Range Road. Once you get the first building up and running, it generates more interest and it's easier to attract the next project, and it just kind of feeds off of itself. So that's one area that we're focusing very heavily on. Another area is we're trying to identify other property around the county where we have existing infrastructure, where we can pretty quickly get a piece of property prepared for development. Because honestly, we don't have that much property that's available that can support future investment opportunities. We have some in Port Huron. There's one piece, pretty good piece in Ira Township, right on the Macomb border. We've got the St. Clair Industrial Park. And then we're building, or will be building, a large 300-acre development on Kimball Township on I-94. But that's going to be a 3 to 5 year project for that to occur. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to do as an organization to prepare for the future. I think things are looking pretty bright for the county. I know that when you talk to organizations like SEMCOG, or you look at some data, some forecasting that's occurred, that they're projecting that our population as a county is going to continue to decline. That's probably true if we didn't do anything. If we just let it happen, that's what will occur, because that's what's occurring in most of the markets in the country. And it's because of the baby boomers leaving the population, passing away, fewer births, and so on. And it's just this kind of a structural change that's occurring at the household level. However, we can affect that, and that's what we intend to do. We're not going to sit back, and we're not just going to let it happen. So we're actively recruiting people to move into our county. We're actively recruiting developers to come here to invest their money. We're doing a lot to improve our downtowns so that they're more attractive for families and for people to both work and live. And I'm very encouraged about the future. I mean, you can look at the numbers. You can look at the numbers that we've got in our annual report. I think they're pretty positive numbers when you go back and look over a 15-year period of time and where we're at today. There's a lot more investment occurring in our county and a lot more jobs being created than we've seen in quite a few years. So with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions that you might have.
I'm particularly interested in the CNC program. How many slots are available in that program?
Yeah, well, there's actually two programs. So the one that I talked about is RESA's pilot program, which is intended for graduates from the 2015 class. So they're going to take 20 to 24 kids through that program. I mentioned that we did a survey, and in the survey it indicated that there would be about 16 CNC machining jobs that will open up this year. That's just from the companies that replied to the survey. And of course, the majority did not reply. So as with any survey, you're lucky to get 10%. But anyway, so there were 16 companies that said there were 16 job openings from the companies that replied. There's also a CNC machining program that St. Clair Community College is holding right now. They're actually in their second generation of this class. They have 13 students going through the program. They had, I think, 10 just a few months ago, the first time that they did this program. It also is an intense training program. At the end of it, all of the kids that completed the program were hired immediately by companies. So now we have 13 more young adults going through that program, and we expect they'll all be hired as well.
Is that connected with Michigan Works, the program at SC4?
Yes.
If I understand correctly, the RESA program is also going to emphasize employability skills and the soft skills and those things along with the CNC, so that those folks not only are employable, but they maintain employment?
That's right. Every student that goes into that program, it's going to be like a job for them. It'll be 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Each of the students will have a portfolio that will be developed for them, that when they complete the program, that portfolio can go right to the employer. They can see what their attendance was, what their tardiness was, how well they performed, what their assessment skill level is at the end of it. Their resume will be in there, and so on. So yeah, that's an important part of that program.
Great.
And we want the kids going into that program we want them to feel like they're going to work. And we're going to take them to plants. The employers that are sponsoring them, we're going to take them to the plants so they get a feel during their training of what it's going to be like to be at the plant and working there. And by the way, you know, I guess I should mention with manufacturing that automation is becoming such an important part of the manufacturing process today that the skill sets are actually changing. It's not, you know, a dirty environment anymore. And we need to tell parents that because they don't seem to realize it. I go into these plants today and you can eat off the floor. They are that clean. And they're so well organized and they track absolutely everything, scrap level, just everything in these plants is highly documented. And so the skill sets now, you need people who can program robots. You need people who can repair robots. That's the type of skill that a lot of these young adults need to be taught.
Can I speak to the housing market for just a minute?
Yeah.
Lots of funding for developments for commercial from the EDA and similar works programs. Problem I see, and if you can give us direction, housing is what's going to help us. Jobs coming in, absolutely going to help our county, but we need kids. The housing market's tanked so bad in St. Clair County where we lost so many of our builders. Banks quit spec homes, and I don't know if you've looked at finding financing for this type of thing. I know I've talked to builders that have purchased lots inside from coming out of Macomb, and you're right, those builders are coming this way because there's land here. But they're skeptical. Are they going to get financing? Can they get someone to finance them to do spec housing so that we've got housing for these people to look at when they come moving in? They're gun shy of what happened in the past here in St. Clair County. Looking at financing for these people, is that part of what EDA is doing as well? Because it's going to be needed.
We haven't specifically done that for builders. We have certainly developed some programs and promote some financing programs for manufacturing and specifically automotive. We haven't really done that much for builders.
Okay.
So, and by the way, the impact, I guess what happened in St. Clair County during the downturn was duplicated all across the state of Michigan and in the U.S. in markets that are similar to our county. So it wasn't really specific to just us. It was really an economic situation. I think the strategy going forward is it's going to be difficult for our local builders to generate the capital that they need to do some of these larger projects. So we need a multi-layered strategy. We want to support local builders because they're stakeholders in our communities, but they're going to have to develop, you know, smaller bundles of lots. So we'll work with them with banks to identify key properties that they can purchase, but they're just not going to be able to build a lot of homes, right? So for us, what we have to do is go outside of the county borders and identify other builders who have deeper pockets, who have the trust of certain banks, and it's unrealistic to expect that we're going to go to people like Jacobson Brothers, Pulte Homes, and that they're going to come in and do these projects because they won't even go into a community unless you have 200 new homes under construction in a year. They won't even look at you, and we're not there yet. So it's going to have to be the mid-range type builders, and there are some that are building in Chesterfield Township right now. So those are the kind of people that we're going to want to approach.
Thank you.
When you talk about working with the mid-size out-of-county builders and you're working with them, if we were to say call short-term 6 to 18 months, is there any project that you can see hitting in the short term?
Again, short term, it's going to have to be development that occurs around subdivisions or condo units that have already been planned for. So The first thing, which we started doing this about 3 years ago, that's when we first started talking to builders, and we asked community partners to identify where those properties were, how many units there were, give us drawings to show those. So we've got a few in our office that we promote when we talk to builders. There are none down here. We don't have a single plan for this area. Most of the plans that we have were in Kimball Township, Fort Gratiot, and so on. So we have more research and work that we need to do in this part of the county to identify where those lots are. I can tell you in the St. Clair area, I was just recently at the St. Clair Township Planning Commission, and they were talking about this. They had, in the township, they had 20 new homes go under construction this year, and they said most of the subdivisions that they had lots available in had been built, purchased and built, and the only subdivision that was left was River Point on River Road, and there was a builder, a local builder, who was looking to buy the remaining lots there, and that a couple of builders were now starting to look at greenfield property for the next generation, if you will, of subdivisions. So I looked at that as a very positive thing for our area, because China Township is one area that has great potential to grow because you've got water and sewer capacity here. And you've got a couple of places on King Road, for example, that were planned for more residential development that hasn't occurred. So those are the places that we will be focusing on.
Mr. Rishley?
I have a few questions. You answered most of mine, but the issue that I'm thinking of is, and I guess the question is, what is the difference between the investment of the northern end of the county, as in like Port Huron and Fort Gratiot, versus the southern end, which I realize, granted, they have more people, but at the same time, what's the disparity?
Well, it's probably not a disparity, but the reality is, where are the majority of the buildings located that are available? And when we look around the county right now, there are literally no industrial buildings available anywhere except in Port Huron. All the rest of those buildings are gone. They've been leased, purchased, or whatever. There's still a couple of really old buildings in Marysville, but even those, we've got a builder or a buyer who purchased one recently, is looking to buy the remaining two in the Marysville Industrial Park. So Port Huron is the only place where there's anything left. I mean, the Mantor building was available, but that's been sold. Mm-hmm. That's a project that we were fortunate enough to be able to work on, and that's been sold. There's one building on Marine City Highway that's remaining, and it's only about, I think, 10,000 square feet. And we have a company that's looking at it right now. So that's one of our challenges, is we're out of inventory. Because of that, we've been focusing more on greenfield construction going forward.
Okay. The other thing is the accuracy of the numbers, like the projections back, I would say 5 years ago, or maybe even say 6 or 7 years ago, when or I guess you'd say that's pre-recession. It was like pre-recession, and when the numbers were still going up, did you project that they were going to go down or not, or was that something that was not expected?
Well, I wasn't here, and when that occurred, I was in a different community in Metro Detroit, but we did not project that the recession was going to happen. That caught us by surprise. I'm sure it caught everybody by surprise in this county as well. The difference is that here, the loss of a major employer has a bigger impact than the loss of a major employer in most of the, say, the Metro Detroit region. So when Blue Water Plastics went under here in our county, that put a lot of people on the unemployment line. That eliminated a lot of tax base from local communities. It put 5 buildings on the market. That was a significant loss. That wasn't the only one. That was about the same time that Atchison Colloids had been sold and then resold. The buyer had sold it to Henkel, and Henkel shut down the operation. Why that was an impact is because they had a lot of high-paying jobs there, PhD level people that were let go. So we really had a double whammy, where the automotive industry was tanking, and then we were losing some of our higher-paying jobs in the market. So we've recovered from all of that, and we've actually expanded beyond where we were before the recession. In other words, the automotive suppliers that have survived have all invested significantly in their facilities. SMR in Marysville is one that's widely known, but ZF in Marysville also invested over $50 million, and they've added about 200 positions. They're all union positions that pay the union wage, so they're good paying jobs. And the company that bought the Mantor building also is paying higher wages than we normally see in manufacturing in our county. So that was a pretty good win for us in this area.
Do you have an idea do the new owners, is it LCU?
LTC.
LTC. When do they hope to start operations there?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's going to be later this year. They're working on the building right now.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is that okay?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Frank?
The RISA Summer Pilot Program, do you know who's paying for that program? Do the students pay for that themselves?
It's a great question. First of all, RISA is committed to paying a good part of that this year out of their current budget. They received a grant from the Community Foundation that's going to pay a significant part. We are going to be charging students for roughly a third of the cost for that. And I believe, don't quote me on the number, but I believe it's about $35,000 to hold that program this summer. So the students are going to have to come up with roughly $10,000 between all 24 students. However, I mentioned the role that manufacturers are going to play in that program.
Right.
So one of the things that we've said and that we're asking manufacturers to commit to is they have to bring the students on as interns as soon as their 10 weeks of training are done. And then if they hire them after that, and if they stay employed past a 90-day probationary period, we're asking the manufacturers to pay $500 to RISA to help offset some of the costs of the program. So it's really multi-sourced funding, and students will have to pay a little bit.
And do we know when or how the students can apply? Is there going to be some literature that we could have in our high schools for these kids?
Yeah, good question. I don't have the answer to that today. I'll have to go back to RISA and ask them that.
Okay, thank you.
I believe they've reached out to our counselors already, RISA has, and tried to give them some information to start identifying students. Because again, the identification is those students who are not on a post-secondary path, don't have a 2-year or 4-year plan, a 4-year college plan, and really have nothing planned beyond graduation. They're the targeted folks right now.
Right, I think it's great. Yeah, great.
So going into that program, the students are already matched up with a company potential employer? Or that's
They will be. That's our intention. We're having the dialogue right now. Just a few months ago, we created the Eastern Michigan Manufacturing Association, which is a division of the EDA. And the association is taking on a robotics showcase as their first project. That's going to be happening on May 16th. All the first robotics teams are going to be invited from our county, and they're all going to receive funding to be there. That was the first project that they took on. The second one is supporting the RISA program. So we have over 200 manufacturers in our county, and they're the target, obviously, for sponsoring the kids in that program.
Yes.
I have a follow-up question to the one about the accuracy of the numbers, but so there is a possibility that actually we could increase in population in the next couple of years. I mean, that's in the realm of possibility.
I don't know if that's within the next 2 years, if that's realistic, but I would say within the next 5 years it is.
Okay. And the other thing too, as well, is the, because you talked about people that live in Macomb County, come here and work, and then go back home. What's the percentage of people in St. Clair County that do that in Macomb or?
35%.
Okay.
35% of the people in our county commute to Macomb, Oakland, or Wayne County.
Okay.
All right, I have a question too. When you're working to bring in people to the county, businesses, residents, how much do the school systems come into the conversation as far as, are we a selling point, or do you use the different school districts as a way to try to attract people? Is that part of the conversation at all?
Well, I would hope they would be. I think an honest answer is they haven't been in the past, with certain exceptions. I think the Marysville School District has been a little bit involved with us with a couple of projects that were proposed for their backyard. We haven't done enough to connect to both the real estate community and to the school districts. And we just, I just appeared in front of the Real Estate Association, and we talked about that, and we said, you know what can we do to help you? And one of the things that they said is, we need welcome packets, and we need information in the packets on the school districts and the recreation facilities that are available. So I think we have some work to do in that area. The chambers have historically provided that role. Chambers are down a little bit, although the Blue Water Chamber is doing pretty well at membership. But some of the other chambers are a little slower to recover since the recession, so they don't have as much resources they once had. So that is an area that we're going to have to continue to boost. Now, I can tell you we're working on a project in Ira Township. I don't know if we'll win it, but we went directly to anchor-based schools because the project's right next to the high school, the site. And we said, this company is going to be doing this, and they're going to need this type of skill set. And they're actually pretty excited to be that close to the high school because they can see opportunities to do some collaboration with you, to create some programs in their plant where students could come over during the summer, be interns, get some practical skills in a certain field that makes sense for them, and then go on to college or apprenticeship programs afterwards with the promise of having a job when they're done. When you look at it from the perspective of a long view, that's a great approach. But if you're looking at it as a one-time hire, I don't know that that's going to be very successful. So for us, that's why we're promoting the career-based education system, because it's intended to benefit virtually every kid that's in school today. No matter where they're going, no matter what their path is, we want them to go to college, we want them to get degrees, and we want them to come back here and be successful. But we need to match them up with job opportunities. And when we don't have job opportunities, that's where we face the potential of losing them to another area, right? So that's the key for us, is let's prepare them so that they can compete for these jobs when they graduate, and let's give them a reason to come back.
Yep. Sounds good to me.
Mr. Casey, thank you very much for your time and input, and we thank you for all the actually good news.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I
Coming down the
appreciate the
pipe.
opportunity to be here in front of you
Yes,
today.
very much. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you coming. Comments or questions from everyone? No? Next item on our agenda is a closed session for the purposes of discussing negotiations. Recommended action that the Board of Education goes into closed session pursuant to Section 8C of the Open Meetings Act, Act 267 of 1976, that being for the board discussion connected with the negotiations of a collective bargaining agreement. I would like to take a roll call vote, please. Mrs. Murphy? Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mrs. Biebuck?
Yes.
Mr. Kennebauer?
Yes.
Yes? Mr. Richley?
Yes.
Mr. Distsrict? Thank you. With that, we will go into closed session. We will have no further action outside of closed session. We will return into this room to adjourn. Thank you very much.